And hi, everybody. I'm Rita Cosby here on America Talks Live on Newsmax, filling in today because we have a big Troupathon tomorrow, which we will be hosting here from 3 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to have a lot more details on that. But first, some big breaking news. As you know, that 3 CNN staffers have now left amidst the scandal and also threatened by a $100 million lawsuit by our next guest. We have an exclusive now with Anthony Scaramucci. He is now serving as the Chief Strategy Officer of the Export-Import Bank for the Trump administration. Anthony, great to have you here. And first of all, congratulations on your new position with the Trump administration.
Rita, thank you so much, and congratulations on Troupathon.
Thank you.
A wonderful thing for everybody.
Thank you. We're so excited to be doing it. And Anthony, thank you in the middle of everything. I know things are breaking fast and furious now. What was your reaction, first of all, to the fact that 3 employees no longer are at CNN?
Well, listen, I've been trying to be low key on this, Rita, because at the end of the day, I certainly don't want people losing their jobs or anything like that. But there has to be like a fair process and some level of objectivity in the journalism. And so I sort of applaud CNN for taking swift action once they figured out that they had gotten the story so wrong. So, I put out on my Twitter feed on, I guess it was Saturday morning, that I accept their apology. I'm not one of these guys to rub anything in on anybody. And my attitude is that they did the right thing by issuing the retraction. They apologized. I accepted their apology. And as I said on Twitter, I sort of just want to move on at this point,
What did you say to CNN? Of course, there are reports that it was a $100 million lawsuit that you had threatened. I've known you a long time, Anthony, and I know that you always stand up when you feel that you've been misrepresented or other people misrepresented. First of all, what did you say? Did you threaten this $100 million lawsuit and say, look, if you don't do it, this is what's going to happen?
In fairness to CNN, it never got to that point. I think that once they started to do their due diligence, I think if they had decided that, okay, we're going to let these false allegations stand and they're going to stay tattooed on our website, then I think we could have gotten into a little more caustic or potentially colorful conversation. But in fairness to them, I think they moved quickly, and they took the steps necessary to, satisfy me that they were trying to inject some integrity into the process. But I think more broadly,
were they aware, Anthony, that a $100 million lawsuit was hanging over them if they didn't do something? And I think we just lost Anthony. We're going to try to get him back, everybody. We've been talking to Anthony Scaramucci. Let's go to Ed Pozwali. Ed, your reaction as we're waiting to hear back breaking news, so he's on the run. But interesting that you heard what he said, that he accepted it. It didn't get to the point. My next question is, were they aware that it was hanging over them?
I think the seriousness of the way, look, first of all, let's applaud Anthony for being such a gentleman about the whole thing. I think he's handled with such grace and professionalism, and CNN is fortunate in that respect. But I also think that initially when CNN was confronted by Anthony and his people, they were quite serious, and I think they got the message across that this was a serious thing, and they wanted immediate action. And I think that CNN responded, and if Anthony is willing to accept that, then I'm willing to accept it. But I would say this: it impacts this debate that ultimately the president and those who surround the president are being contacted every day or pushed every day by the media, and just not fair.
Yeah, and obviously this comes on the heels of Sarah Palin. I understand we got Anthony Scaramucci back on. Anthony, I'm sorry, right before we just lost you there, I was asking, did you indeed threaten them with 100, not threatening, but at least say, look, it's a threat for any news organization, but you could face a $100 million lawsuit?
Categorically, I think the news reports just said, okay, that type of allegation saying someone's under federal investigation and somebody with my profile, if you look at the Gawker case with Paul Hogan, I think that's where that number came from. But again, I'm not an exaggerator, and I don't want to be a dramatist here. It never got to that point. And I think your guess that I was overhearing, it is acceptable to me. And as far as I'm concerned, if they tighten up their standards, and it hopefully sends a message to other news outlets, we sort of have to stop this nonsense. I think the president has 93% of the information coming out of CNN is negative on the president. And that may be an objective of theirs from a business point of view, but I don't think it's going to be successful for them in the long term if they maintain that. So hopefully the pendulum will swing back a little bit. There'll be a little bit more fairness injected into the process, more objectivity. And if those things come out of this, then that's great. But listen, I'm a huge supporter of the president and his agenda, and I want to see him succeed. I think he's got all of America's interest at heart. That's every American, whether they're Democrat or Republican, race, color, or creed. And he'll do a good job for people. And it would be important if we can just get focused more on the agenda and less on the witch hunt and the gotcha sort of.
Well, and obviously that sort of was the focus too, Anthony, that you felt that they were in such a rush to get a story there. And as they've even said that their standards, it didn't even meet their standards. Did Jeff Zucker, the head of CNN, apologize directly to you? I mean, I know we've heard statements publicly from CNN. What did they say to you personally, Anthony?
I didn't need that. I think and I know Jeff a long time. I think the apology from the organization, as I said, is enough for me. And so, look, you look at these things in a lot of different ways.
Did you have conversations, Anthony, with Jeff Zucker or any of the folks there? What were your conversations?
Rita, in fairness to all of them, I don't even think it's fair to go into all that. I just think that I did have conversations with members of CNN's organization. I presented to them what was factual content that disproved the allegations that were being made. I also suggested to them that there were people that they would have needed to have talked to, which they didn't, to verify what they were alleging. And I think once they made those phone calls and they realized how far off they were on the story, they issued the retraction and an apology. And so for me, it was a successful outcome. And again, Winston Churchill has a great line: "In victory, magnanimity." And I want to be gracious here to everybody involved. And hopefully a message has been sent that we need to tighten up these standards and let's focus more on the president's agenda and less on the politics of personal destruction.
Were you angry, Anthony, personally? I've known you a long time just as an individual. What was your reaction when you found out that they went with what were thin sources, if any?
Well, if you'd asked me that question, Rita, 10 years ago, I probably would have said yes, angry. But today, at this point in my life, and given the level of intensity and the blood sport of politics today, I would say that I wasn't angry as much as I was thinking rationally about what I needed to do to protect myself, my family, and frankly, my dad's name. My dad grew up with, little means. He created a great middle-class lifestyle for us, and he was many years a blue-collar person. And so for me, I have to protect his name vigilantly, because without his work effort and all the things he did for us as a family, I couldn't be where I am today. So I don't want people going after my last name for that reason, and I'd be very vigilant on that.
And what is your reaction to Sarah Palin, real quick? Because Sarah Palin is now filing suit against the New York Times, Anthony. Is this, you think, going to be a trend? Is this sort of what's to come?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the facts of the case. I know Governor Palin. She's spoken at Skybridge Salt Conference when I owned Skybridge. An enormous amount of respect for the governor. My guess is if she thinks there's something there, there probably is. But I would say more broadly, I think if they tighten up their standards, then obviously people won't be in this adversarial position. So,
what's the message, Anthony, you have for all media now? Is there an overarching message for everybody that if the Trump administration or anybody close to it feels that it's incorrect, they're going to go after them?
Okay, so Rita, what I would tell you is, I've never really been a journalist, but I did play one on television when I was hosting Wall Street Week. And so I have empathy for the journalist community. I know the need to get these stories out and to beat the competition and to be a step ahead or a cut ahead of the other people. But I do think that what they have to do is just take a pause, get a second look at it, create some checks and balances in the system, which I think will long-term benefit them from an integrity perspective and a reputation perspective, and be more positive for the process of what's going on. And if we can dial back some of the acrimony on both sides, and let it be less adversarial, I think it's just better for the American people.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Anthony. And I hear what you're saying, the apology accepted from CNN. And great to have you here in the middle of all this for your first interview. Thank you very much, Anthony. We appreciate it.
Best of luck to you on Trupathon.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
All the best.
Thank you so much, Anthony. As you just heard, also we're doing Trupathon tomorrow, which you have to be a part of too, by the way, Ed. Thank you very much for being with us.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. It was really great. And everybody coming up, we're going to talk about Trupathon because coming up we have Melanie Morgan. She, of course, is one of the co-founders, also Scott Robb. Awesome event. Stay tuned, everybody.